Fala galera, beleza? Aqui é o Senhor 10 e hoje, gente, eu estou aqui para reagir mais uns vídeos aqui no canal. E hoje, gente, ó, hoje eu vou reagir um vídeo que me pediu para reagir, né? Que é Biology of the Future is Which. Cara, quem foi o gênio que tirou essa ideia de fazer tudo isso em inglês? Pelo amor de Deus. Cara, mano do céu, eu tô traduzindo esse título aqui para tentar falar direito aqui, né? Mas, cara, por que hoje em dia é tudo em inglês, né? Mas a tradução seria: a biologia do futuro é selvagem. Cara, eu já reagi à abertura e um vídeo onde vimos a comparação de tamanho de criaturas, né? Que, por sinal, tá aqui embaixo da descrição esses vídeos, né? Mas, porém, eu vi que muita gente me pediu para reagir esse vídeo, então, beleza, então vou reagir. Mas pelo que eu soube, também está com legenda, gente, pois é. Eu acho que nem vou precisar pausar pra ler, eu acho que eu vou conseguir ler de boa. O problema é que eu tô preocupado, que vídeo vai ser, hein? Eu sei que todos os vídeos que eu reagi foi tudo do documentário, né? Porque isso é conteúdo de explicar sobre as criaturas, eu sei. Mas eu tô preocupado, que vídeo é esse, né? Porque depois dos últimos reacts, me deixou muito mais curioso, né? E muito preocupado, né? Porque depois do comparação de tamanho, onde mostrou o design das criaturas, meu Deus do céu. Mas vamos ver, né? Talvez, né? Talvez esse vídeo vai me explicar alguns detalhes das criaturas que foram mostrados do vídeo anterior, né? Então, bora pra reagir. Mas antes de iniciarmos, eu quero que vocês, por favor, gente, deixem o seu like, se inscreva no canal e, é claro, gente, ativa o sininho. E comente aqui, galera, você já assistiu esse vídeo? Hein? Comente aqui sua opinião, o que aconteceu e tal, sua reação. E de bônus, o que vocês querem que eu traga aqui pros próximos vídeos, beleza? Então agora bora então pra ver esse vídeo aqui, vai. 3, 2, 1... Olha lá, já vai começar. É esse assunto sobre evolução. Explore as formas. É um vídeo grande, então temos que prestar atenção nesses detalhes.
And I think my interest in it helped set me on the path which eventually led to me making this channel. The special effects are, of course, a little dated by today's standards, but the world is fantastically detailed. And an impressive team of real scientists came up with the creatures that inhabit.
Olha essas criaturas.
While some of the predictions are pretty out there, people forget the Future's Wild never set out to flawlessly predict future life forms, but to get people excited about biology and earth science. And I think these creatures definitely deserve a nostalgic second look, even if you've never heard of them before. So, for this extra long entry into the archive, we'll be exploring this hypothetical future, having fun incorporating contemporary scientific discoveries that might provide new insight into speculative life forms, and just appreciating the richness of the world the series created. So, prepare to jump forward several million years to the first era of The Future's Wild.
Ela vai falar.
The Future's Wild is divided into 3 eras, set 5 million, 100 million, and 200 million years into the future. Our journey begins in the 5 million year era, when Earth is locked in an ice age.
Humans
aren't present in this narrative, having either left the planet or long since died out. We'd know this frozen wasteland as northern France, but it's now unrecognizable, buried under sheets of ice over half a mile or 1 kilometer thick. Haunting this icy tundra is the first life form of the future. This is a snow stalker, a saber-toothed predator searching desperately for a meal. The snow stalker is a grounded, speculative life form, and one of my favorites when I was younger. This snow stalker has journeyed all the way from the coast in search of food, and it might have found some in the form of gannet whales.
Gansos patolon. Gansos patola, é isso.
Aquatic birds, and have come ashore to lay their eggs. Their ancestor is the modern gannet, a bird that can already dive underwater and swim with its wings. The concept of a gannet transitioning to a dolphin-sized animal in just 5 million years is in some
Cara,
ways surprising.
isso que eu tava querendo saber mais desse detalhe.
Expect that already aquatic animals like sea lions and penguins would be the ones to evolve into a niche left by whales and their relatives. But we now know better than ever from the fossil record that whales themselves evolved from a rodent-like animal into a large seafaring one remarkably quickly. So gannet whales, though unexpected, aren't impossible. And while a single gannet whale would be a mighty feast for a snowstalker, this group is just too large to be worth the trouble. Further inland, however, another potential source of food is moving across the plains. On the horizon, a herd of shagrats log their way through the snow. These thick-coated creatures
É
are
isso que
the
tava escrito,
descendants
shagrats.
of alpine marmots,
Shagrats, eu
although the
acho que é isso.
shagrats are over 3 times larger than their rodent ancestors. And while shagrats look a bit like muskoxen, they aren't much bigger than sheep. So 5
Cara,
million years is
que
plenty of
criaturas
time for
aleatórias.
some life form to emerge upon the tundra. Yet shagrats aren't big enough to deter a predator like a snowstalker. All it takes is for one of them to fall behind the herd, and the weary snowstalker can at last get its meal.
Nossa.
Yet this meal won't just feed one mouth. This particular snowstalker is a mother and is bringing back food for her
Snowstalker. Isso é o nome.
stuck out to me, as it shows us that even in the most competitive ecosystems, parental
Cara, isso agora ficou interessante falar sobre o detalhe dessas criaturas. Isso é um documentário.
Ecosystems are even more barren. The scientists imagine that to the south, tectonic and temperature shifts have transformed the Mediterranean Sea into vast salt flats. Dashing along this harsh expanse is a cryptile. These lizards are some of the only creatures that can endure this arid desert, thanks to their clever method of getting moisture. Near pools of brine, enormous swarms of brine flies reproduce and take to the air. These engorged flies are an excellent source of food and water for anything that can catch them. And the cryptile is an expert fly trapper.
Criptelle, na real.
Pushes through the huge swarm, using its neck frill as a fishing net and licking
Esse bicho me lembra outra criatura, só não lembro de cabeça o nome.
It's an extreme concept for a life form, but a believable one. The cryptile, like a lot of the best life forms in the future's wild, takes numerous unique
Esse bicho,
such as frilled lizards and salt lake ground
lagartos de gola. Isso, é esse bicho.
Yet still plausible life form. Rising out of the salt, the Mediterranean islands are now mountains of eroded limestone.
Opa, outro canto.
For cryptiles, they make an ideal egg-laying location. Deep fissures in the rock called grikes mark the island's surface.
Olha
And some
só
of these
isso.
miniature canyons are narrow enough that they are inaccessible to most predators. But near the larger grikes, a cryptile needs to be on its guard. For there is a predator here, a stealthy griken, that takes advantage of the natural cover the grikes provide. The griken's closest ancestor is the pine marten, a small predator that today navigates the branches of trees instead of narrow canyons. But 5 million years is
Lembro de outra criatura.
for a pine marten to become a deadly griken. Efficient as grikens are, however, the cryptile has the advantage of speed. But the cryptile isn't the preferred prey of the grikens. Instead, the delicate-looking pigs known as scrofas are their primary
Ah, esses porcos, eu me lembro. Só esqueci, não sei o nome. Escrovas. Os javalis selvagens.
Scrofa leg bones have become elongated, with the animals now walking on the tips of their toes. It's an adaptation we've documented elsewhere in nature. This hoof design mirrors those of klipspringer antelopes, which have similar ballet shoe-like hooves to move on rocky outcroppings. So, considering the scrofa's environment, their strange hoof structure holds up to scientific scrutiny. With pigs this athletic, the grikens have their work cut out for them in trying to catch one. Further south is one of the regions.
Cara, que criaturas interessantes. Galera, depois vocês comentem aqui qual dessas criaturas te chamam muita atenção mesmo.
South American landscape where the Amazon rainforest stood before the Ice Age. And upon this Amazon prairie, a strange troop of ground-dwelling monkeys called babucaris move through the tall grass. The babucaris are fairly intelligent, weaving strange basket-like traps and placing them in shallow lakes to catch small fish, which are their primary food source. While this level of tool use in a primate might seem surprising, we now have even more documentation than when this documentary first aired of primates using tools to get to their food. But the monkey the babukari are theoretically evolved from, the red-faced wakari, aren't among those that have been documented using basic tools. But no matter their ancestor, the babukari's existence on the plains is imagined to be quite perilous. For the troop is always in danger of being eaten by the mighty carakillers, enormous birds that patrol the grasslands in groups. Like the babukari, the carakiller's ancestor is a bit surprising, as they're imagined to have evolved from small falcons in just 5 million years' time. A larger modern bird like the red-legged
fala de evolução, meu Deus do céu.
Birds are the real-world inspiration of the carakiller, are another potential starting point for these giants. But in either case, carakillers, for all their strength, can't do much to a creature like a rattleback. These reptile-like armored are imagined to have too thick a shell for carakillers to break through. Their armor is actually derived from hair, which has become matted and fused into hard scales. This is because the rattleback isn't a reptile at all, but a mammal imagined to have evolved from a forest-dwelling rodent species. They were another one of my favorites from although admittedly, a rodent transitioning into a reptile-like creature that can move its scales independently in just 5 million years would be quite the transformation.
Nossa.
But a relative of the rattleback
Cara, eu comecei a achar que era um ouriço em vez de ser.
Dwells in the bleak desert of central North America. In this Ice Age desert, the North American rattleback braves the intense cold. This particular rattleback is a mother traveling with her baby, and they are facing the intense winds of a sandstorm. Luckily, their spines aren't just adapted to deter predators, but also to protect themselves from the unforgiving environment. These creatures are closer to what one might expect to emerge in this evolutionary time frame. To find food, the rattlebacks dig underground for tubers, but this mother is unknowingly disturbing the burrow of a highly unusual subterranean life form. This tiny creature is a spink, and although it might not look like it, the spink is a bird. According to the documentary, the spink evolved from quails, near flightless birds that transition to an underground lifestyle.
Caramba! Eu achei que era um roedor, não uma ave.
For just 5 million years of transition, although we do have documentation of other birds, like bee eaters, digging burrows in which to lay their eggs. But the spink live almost their entire lives in their tunnels, and only come out under cover of darkness. Peculiar as they are, I've always found these tunneling birds strangely adorable. Far less adorable are the creatures that swoop overhead. With wingspans of 4 feet or 1 meter,
There are Tingleaners. Que nome é esse? Ah, são esses morcegos do último. Cara, eu me lembro desse vídeo que eu falei deles. América do Norte.
Special extinction event for bats to outcompete large North American birds of prey like eagles and condors. But certain modern species of bats, like flying foxes, have already reached similar sizes. So from a biomechanical perspective, given the right opportunity,
cara, eu tô lendo aqui, mas eu não consigo falar o nome da criatura. É muito grande, pelo amor de Deus.
Jumps to my personal favorite era of 100 million years into the future.
100 milhões de anos.
This is a version of Earth where hot and humid climate conditions have led to a period of tremendous biodiversity. And no species is more emblematic of this era of abundance than the Toraton. These giants are huge.
Cara, me falar que é dinossauro, mas que nada. Só pelos pescoços.
So it's surprising that the ancestor of these creatures is a species of tortoise.
Não é possível. Será que é daquele da tartaruga que apareceu do tamanho? Comparação de tamanhos?
We now have better research suggesting that large dinosaurs like sauropods could only get so large thanks to their starting advantage of lightweight bone construction. Still, I've always loved the concept of giant
Toraton.
tortoises and other aspects of the Toraton, like legs that have shifted under their body and their swampy environment having a tremendous amount of available plant matter, make a lot of sense considering their size. Near the feet of the Toratons dwell a family of
Toraton.
swampus.
Isso,
These
igual
excellently named
pus,
creatures
quê?
are the descendants of octopuses.
Pior que estão fora d'água.
Remarkably, they can move on land. Strange as that might sound, we now have more documentation than ever of octopuses moving on the land in a limited capacity, using their tentacles to haul themselves along. The swampus takes this concept
Igual
further by
pus.
being able to breathe above water to some extent, sort of like the strange mud skippers of today. And like the mud skipper, the swampus spends part of their time in the water, and aren't true land-dwelling cephalopods. Those will come later. For now, every time the swampus returns to the water, it has to be on high alert, for there's an apex predator here in the murky depths that can feed on the swampus. This is a lurkfish, a descendant of the
Lurkfish?
catfish that can sense the swampus's movement thanks to a weak electric field the lurkfish generates. But this terror of the wetland has another use for electricity. Releasing a powerful shock, the lurkfish stuns the swampus and swallows its meal in a single gulp. While this menacing life form
Que isso?
many modern catfish hunt in a manner that is surprisingly similar. Certain breeds of catfish can produce a small shock thanks to specialized muscles on their back, which the catfish uses to stun its prey, just like a lurkfish. But it's not just the swamps of this era.
Cara, eu tô surpreso que mostra criaturas totalmente diferentes.
Have caused tremendous sea level rise, with many lowland regions now flooded. These vast, shallow seas stretch across the globe and are home to remarkable new life forms. This is an ocean
Ocean
Always one of my favorites,
Plankton.
this complex-looking creature is a unique type of siphonophore. Like modern siphonophores, the ocean phantom is actually composed of
Mas
numerous different
Que
life
isso?
forms, some of which act as sails to help it navigate these seas, others of which help keep the life form afloat, and finally, some which trail below the colony to help it catch food. The idea of a life form using biological sails might sound a little out
Que é
there,
isso?
but some modern
Barbatana?
siphonophores and their relatives have already evolved
Ah,
something
não.
similar. So, while the ocean phantom is certainly an unusual life form, frankly, so are most
Esse é
modern
mais
siphonophores.
bizarro que eu já vi.
Under the water's surface, small creatures swim in the shallow current. At a glance, these creatures look like fish, but the scientists imagine they're actually a descendant of the sea slug, or nudibranch. These are reef gliders, and they play a vital role in pollinating the red algae that grows here. Free-swimming sea slugs might have once seemed
Essas
far-fetched, but the
lesmas.
recently filmed cephalophagy is a nudibranch that has evolved to spend its entire life swimming in the ocean current. So the concept of a fish-like sea slug such as the reef glider isn't so unlikely after all. But the reef gliders are in danger here in the open ocean. For the ocean phantom is a hunter, and is quite adept at snatching up reef gliders and using them to feed the colony. But feeding on reef gliders is a dangerous gambit, for while young reef gliders are
Planadores de
small,
Recife.
adults are large enough to pose a serious threat to the soft
Então é
ocean
isso.
phantom. Yet in cases where the colony is menaced by an adult reef glider, the ocean phantom has one last form of protection. It has its own personal defense team, in the form of spindle troopers. Huge sea spiders that live in chambers of the phantom rush to defend their home. They attack the adult reef glider until it backs off. The highly complex symbiosis between the spindle troopers and the
Spindling.
ocean phantoms have modern parallels. As the
Nossa.
documentary points out, bodyguards aren't unheard of in nature. The trapezoid crab, for example, lives among coral and protects its home from coral-eating starfish with its sharp pinchers. The ocean phantoms take this a step further, however, by also providing their
Eu gostaria de falar os nomes, mas estou prestando atenção nesses
from the
detalhes.
algae that grows on the ocean phantom's back. Truly, these siphonophores are almost like miniature cities, floating on the vast, shallow seas. Not all regions of this high-temperature Earth are underwater, however. A vast rainforest can be found upon a rather unexpected continent. We'd know this landmass as Antarctica, but it has changed much from our era, becoming warmer and warmer as tectonic
Ih, o
plates
mundo tá
shift
se
cause the
mexendo.
landmass to move upwards. Now near the equator, this green Antarctica has given rise to startling adaptations. Birds are the main inhabitants of this region, as they were some of the few animals able to migrate to this island continent over the millennia. But this particular species, the Spitfire bird, has a defense unlike any we'd recognize. When threatened, the Spitfire bird sprays a hot, noxious fluid from its nose. While we've never seen such a defense evolve in a bird from our time, the bombardier beetle can produce a burning, acid-like substance that can repel almost any predator. The Spitfire bird might just be the most impressive bird species of the green Antarctic. On the nearby peaks of the Great Plateau, however, another remarkable species is waiting. The mountain range where it dwells was formed by the tectonic plates of Australia and southeastern Asia colliding, a crash that would likely result in peaks even higher than the Himalayas of today. And soaring over these peaks is a great blue windrunner. This giant bird possesses a wingspan
Essa
of
é...
10 feet
Nossa,
or 4
olha só.
meters. And upon closer inspection, it actually has 4 wings, not just 2, to help it maintain altitude. At the time of the Futures Wilds production, the concept of a bird with 4 wings was just speculation.
É, esse detalhe dos 4 asas.
However, a specimen of the Microraptor genus of dinosaur was discovered to have 4 wings.
Isso é novo, hein, desse dinossauro.
While the Microraptor is of course a life form from Earth's past instead of its future, this discovery shows that such a body plan was, at some point, successful. While the windrunners are majestic, a much less appealing species
Corredores de
lives in the
ventos.
gloom of the Great Plateau's
Cara.
caves. These are silver spiders,
Aranhas
massive arachnids that have collected huge
prateadas.
piles of grass
Prateadas,
seeds.
né?
But silver spiders are carnivores. The seeds aren't for them. They're for a small, shy species of rodent, the amusingly named poggle. While the hamster-like poggles themselves are cute, their role in this ecosystem gave me more existential dread during my childhood than pretty much anything. The documentary imagines that poggles are, unsettlingly, the very last of all mammal species on Earth. And while the silver spiders allow them to eat their fill of seeds, this is because the spiders are farming the poggles. On occasion, the spiders will attack one poggle and drag it off to be eaten. It's a terrifying fate for the last mammal, and one I'm sure caused nightmares across the globe. Thankfully, it's one of the less likely hypotheticals. Mammals are highly adaptable, already having survived one mass extinction, and aren't likely to be outcompeted so thoroughly in all parts of the globe that they go completely extinct, even in 100 million years. But a world without mammals is an interesting concept to explore as a hypothetical, which is part of the idea behind the Futures Wild anyway. In 200 million
chegou o que tava esperando.
last reached the final era of the Futures Wild, which scientists imagine is home to the most unrecognizable life forms of all. This version of planet Earth now features a single supercontinent and a single global ocean, much like the bygone era of Pangaea. This is, indeed, where our tectonic plates are likely headed, and the result would be some truly extreme environments. On the edge of the coast, what seem like birds are flapping in the sky. But upon closer inspection, these aren't birds at all, but aerial fish, which the documentary amusingly calls flish. The flish are an icon of the franchise in a way, and are meant to have evolved from the gliding, flying fish of today. In 200 million years,
Peixe voador não é possível.
Efficient flight and lung-like organs isn't so improbable a hypothetical after all. And the air is one of the safer places to be, for in the waters of the global ocean, sharks are still
espécie de tubarão.
This bioluminescent species
E
is a
Sharkobite, nossa.
Sharks surviving this far into the future with essentially the same body plan actually makes complete sense, as they've been stalking our oceans for at least 400 million years with very few changes. But the introduction of bioluminescent signals show the sharkopaths have become coordinated pack hunters, using their flashes to keep track of
Eles
each other.
estão brilhando, é impressão minha, gente.
While the sharkopaths are deadly, however, they aren't the largest life forms in the global ocean. That distinction goes to the colossal rainbow squid.
Ai,
These highly intelligent life forms
é o
are
que
another
chamou
one of
muita
my
atenção
childhood
do último
favorites,
vídeo.
due to their ability to change color to ward off predators. Displays like this are also present in the cephalopods of today thanks to the power of chromatophores. These are pigment-filled sacs in the skin that can create remarkably complex colors and patterns in response to signals from the animal's brain. But the rainbow squid's chromatophores are imagined to be on another level, able to render the creature virtually invisible by matching the color of the water, or by lighting up the rainbow squid in a dazzling display to others of their kind. A squid offshoot one day conquering the sea is one thing, but on land, the future's wild has one last surprise. This
Última
perpetually
surpresa?
heated rainforest is located on the northern portion of the Era's supercontinent.
E agora eu tô com
and
medo.
wandering through the forest is a 16-foot, or 5-meter tall, squid.
Lula?
Is a megasquid, one of the most famous and
Megasquid.
devoted life forms of the future's wild. Like the swampus, it's a cephalopod that has traded the sea for the land. But unlike the swampus, it is now fully terrestrial. Even in 200 million years, a squid becoming an elephant-sized land dweller without a rigid skeleton seems improbable. But the documentary claims the squid supports itself using a network of circular and vertical muscles that act as a pseudoskeleton. And according to calculations done by McNeil Alexander, a late British biomechanist who worked on the project, the math actually checks out in favor of the megasquid. So the megasquid, while extremely speculative, might not be completely impossible after all, which is a preferable outcome because the concept of a giant forest-dwelling squid is amazing. And in the branches above the megasquid, the final creature of the future's wild is waiting. This is a squibbin, another
Squibel.
terrestrial squid that spends its life swinging from the branches of the forest canopy.
Que
And if that
isso?
isn't strange enough,
São como
the
macacos,
documentary
aranhas?
mentions that navigating the three-dimensional forest has made these creatures highly intelligent. Indeed, this 200 million year journey ends with a stirring promise of human-like intelligence re-emerging through the squibbin. It's a speculative concept that is certainly unusual, but strangely compelling. While humans are gone forever in this future, the implication that a new civilization of intelligent squids will replace us is perhaps strangely comforting. Honestly, I could have explored this world forever, but while there wasn't enough time to cover every single life form, I hope I've shown why the future is wild was something really special. There wasn't anything like it on TV at the time, and there hasn't really been anything quite like it since. Hearing top scientists get excited about the creatures they've invented was just so wholesome, and I hope they know how much the world they created meant to people. I hear there have been plans to revive the show that have never quite materialized, and I think that's a shame. I feel like a modern remake or sequel with better effects and even more science would be really successful in the age of the internet. Maybe one day we'll get more of The Future is Wild. But in the meantime, we have the incredible original, which has stood the test of time. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this entry, please lend your support by liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification icon to stay up to date on all things curious. See you in the next video.
Galera, cara, esse vídeo aqui ficou muito bom. Gente do céu, isso aqui é perfeito para vídeos de documentário sobre algumas criaturas. Bom, eu demorei muito para perceber que essa história daqui fala que é uma história falando sobre o que aconteceria se passasse alguns anos depois que os humanos desaparecessem. É tipo, passou alguns anos, tipo, como falou aqui, ó, 5.000 anos, 100, 200, e os humanos desapareceu. Já até comentou aqui um início aqui e tal, mas, cara, gostei desse vídeo aqui porque ele explicou certinho sobre cada criatura que falou sobre entre a terra, no ar, debaixo d'água. Mano, sei o que é isso? E principalmente falou sobre as suas características, tipo, vi alguns aqui que, pelo amor de Deus, gente, qual que era o nome de uma espécie aqui? Ai, deixa eu ver aqui, tantas espécies aqui que eu tô meio perdido. Tinha um aqui que, tipo, tá debaixo da terra, Mas, cara... lembrei. Se eu não me engano, seu nome é... Deixa eu ver... Spinker. Eu não sei se eu falei certo. Mas pra aqueles que não lembram, vou ver se eu encontro uma imagem numa pesquisa pra mostrar pra vocês. Eles... No começo eu achei que eram tipo um rato, sabe? Tipo um rato e tal. Mas ele é tipo uma ave. Por que, gente? Não faz no sentido. Mas depois dessa explicação, agora me explicou direitinho e tal. Esse detalhe agora. Deixa eu ver o que mais. Deixa eu ver. Teve um aqui que mostrou uma criatura. Essa ave azul, mano. Falou sobre ela, que se eu não me engano, deixa eu ver. Griat Blue. Blue Windruneer. Cara, pra que nomes grandes? Não precisa, mas tudo bem. Essa ave grande eu já vi na internet. E, mano, essa ave me deixou muito curioso. Tanto essa ave, como também deixa eu lembrar o Flinchins. Cara, esses também me chamam muita atenção. Mas eu achei que esses Flinchins, na real, não achei que eram peixes. Achei que era outra coisa, mas, mano céu, que isso? Mas agora eu vou falar a verdade. Qual dessas criaturas me chamou muita atenção? Bem, sem sombra de dúvidas, é o do Rebirth Skit. E para aqueles que não lembram o nome, eu leio aqui também comigo, é aquela lula gigante que conseguiu se camuflar na água. Mano do céu, cara, eu sabia que ela se camuflava, porém no mar. Eu achei que ela tava se camuflando em paredes, igual uns polvos, mas não. Ela se camuflou no meio do mar. Tipo uma criatura que tem poderes de ficar invisível. Mano, que isso? Cara, eu gostei desse vídeo e até vou pesquisar um pouco mais detalhes desse universo, né? O Del Futuri Wid, né? Vou pesquisar mais um pouco para conhecer mais detalhes sobre essas criaturas. E talvez deve ter mais, né? Eu acho que mostrou pouco, né? Mas eu vou pesquisar mais um pouco, porque como eu disse no último vídeo, depois que eu me aprofundei um pouco sobre os filmes do Jurassic Park, eu fiquei pesquisando, eu fiquei pegando umas fotos, qualquer coisa para aprender mais segredos dos dinossauros, né? Saber mais quem é o dinossauro, suas características, sua origem, quem encontrou seu fóssil e tal. Aqui eu vou pesquisar mais detalhes sobre essas criaturas, mesmo que... Bom, eu sei que esse vídeo é interessante, né? Mas esse vídeo vai falar sobre as criaturas que vão aparecer em 5 milhões de anos, né? Ou 100, 200, depois que os seres humanos, tipo, desapareceram, né? Foram extintos, né? Cara, isso pode ser impossível de acontecer, mas foi interessante, né? E me deixou muito curioso para saber mais detalhes sobre as criaturas. Mas, cara, vou repetir. Tem criaturas aqui que na minha cabeça eu achei que era tipo parentes. Parentes não. Eles são mais próximos das criaturas e tal. Mas depois desse vídeo eu falei assim: cara, não tem nada a ver. Cara, como eu falei do bichinho aqui que lembrou um rato, mas depois falou que é uma ave, pelo amor de Deus, não, minha cabeça ficou confusa, como assim? Mas como eu li aqui aqui embaixo a explicação mesmo em inglês, com a legenda eu li, me explicou direitinho. Aí eu fiquei tipo, aliviado e pelo menos justificou algumas coisas. Mas nem tudo, né? Mas deu pra eu ler tudinho, nem precisou nem pausar, nem precisou. Mas, cara, eu tô chocado sobre esse vídeo, hein? Na minha opinião ficou ótimo. Eu vou até reassistir várias vezes esse vídeo pra saber mais detalhes. E se tiver mais vídeos relacionados a esse Tel Futuri Wid, hein? Se tiver mais pra eu reagir, pode comentar, galera, que eu vou trazer, porque depois desse vídeo eu vou ficar atento se tiver mais vídeos relacionados a isso, beleza? E é isso, gente, chegamos ao final do vídeo, espero muito que vocês tenham gostado. Se vocês gostaram, gente, por favor, deixe o seu like, se inscreva no canal e ative o sininho. E comente aqui, galera, vocês gostaram desse vídeo, hein? Já escolheu qual dessas criaturas chamou muita a atenção de vocês, né? Qual que chamou mesmo, porquê e tal. Comente aqui pra mim que eu quero saber. E o que vocês querem que eu traga aqui pros próximos vídeos? Continuem comentando aqui que eu vou trazer pra vocês, beleza? E é isso então, um abraço pra vocês!